Oh, the spin-off. When a game franchise gets popular, companies will capitalize on it, swiftly and repeatedly, and Pokémon is certainly no exception. After Pokémon Red and Blue quite literally took over the world, it wasn't long before good old Pikachu tackled not just new ideas, but well-worn genres for franchise side projects. Enter... Get in here. Enter... Pokémon Pinball. Pinball is a common target for franchise spin-offs, and this one is about what you'd expect. Only 2 tables are present, red and blue, naturally, each with their own distinct layout and ways to interact. Table elements are all themed appropriately, from Voltorb bumpers to Pikachu saving your ball if their electricity is charged up. Gameplay begins in a specific area of Kanto selected at random when you launch your first Pokéball ball, and this impacts which Pokémon you can catch right off the bat. Because of course, Pokémon Pinball is about catching them all! Many of the mechanics actually do a good job of applying Pokémon's gameplay in a pinball setting, and the catch and evolution modes are probably the best examples of that. Catch mode gives you 2 tasks. Hit bumpers 6 times to slowly reveal the Pokémon you're after, then hit it with your ball 4 times to catch it. Evolution mode functions in similar ways. Hitting specified targets will spawn experience tokens at random around the table, simulating actual training and leveling up. Both modes are timed, but they give players a full minute to go at it with no risk of losing a ball, which mitigates the frustration of failing within the first few seconds. Keeping the ball in play can grant access to bonus games like clearing out Diglett or collecting coins from Meowth, and you can move between different areas of Kanto mid-game to find new Pokémon. Of course, getting a game over means you start from scratch next time. So basically it's pinball with Pokémon everywhere. So far so good. How's it play? It really all comes down to the ball physics. They're decent by 8-bit pinball game standards, but still quite inconsistent. There are a lot of quirks and unpredictabilities. Sometimes they work in your favor, and sometimes they don't. This can make nailing precise or specific shots pretty difficult, and that can get in the way of the fun when overall game progress or completing your Pokédex is dependent on making those shots. There's only so many times you can fail to hit a target or experience token before things go from motivating to infuriating. This is the reality for lots of pinball games out there, but here, when you're trying to work on your Pokédex or trigger a specific bonus feature, it can create an added layer of frustration, especially when you can't really build on any progress across multiple games. Lose all your balls, lose everything you've done on that table up to that point. Speaking of frustrations, as you've certainly seen by now, the game can't scroll between the top and bottom halves of the table, so a brief flash to white transitions between the two, and it can get disorienting at times, especially when gameplay is picking up speed. This is by no means the only retro pinball game with this limitation, but it's worth noting nonetheless. Some subjectiveness comes into play in terms of which table feels or plays better, but Blue's layout sucks you into the trigger for catching and evolving automatically, which means you can activate them pretty consistently, and that may be more appealing to some. Red's layout arguably requires more skill, which some will relish, but it may annoy players who struggle with their accuracy and just can't get the ball where they want it to go. Jeez. Regardless of your table of choice, the game does look and sound pretty good. The presentation is lively and cheery, with both tables showing some fun and distinct personality, largely thanks to Pokémon replacing those common table elements. The soundtrack is serviceable, with predictable remixes from not just Red and Blue, but also Gold and Silver, despite predating those games by a few months. There's a useless trivia night fact for you. Go win a few beers with that one. You're welcome. The best part though, if you were lucky enough to play this game on its physical cartridge, it had a battery-powered rumble feature, which was pretty cool for a Game Boy game. So where does that leave us here? Pinball spin-offs can be one of the lowest effort ways to expand your franchise. It's all too easy to make a generic pinball game, slap your mascot character's face on there, and call it a day. But Pokémon Pinball doesn't really fall into that trap. The game does distinguish itself in this space to deliver some novelty, and that'll be enough for some. But as is often the case here, your appreciation for it will largely depend on your appreciation for pinball in general. So when you put it all together, Pokémon Pinball gets 3 Gloobies out of 5. The core gameplay is admittedly addictive, but inconsistencies in ball physics and other gameplay limitations put a definite ceiling on the fun factor. Pokémon fans and those with nostalgia for the game may enjoy revisiting it, but most will have a better time with the almost objectively better sequel on the Game Boy Advance. Thanks so much for watching. Stay fresh, cheese bags. We'll catch you back here real soon.